Why do you care so much about things you won't even remember a year from now? A message arrives with a period instead of an exclamation point, and suddenly you are replaying the conversation. A stranger criticizes something you made, and the compliment from 10 people disappears. You are late to dinner because you are fixing a problem that was never urgent. Then you feel guilty for being distracted, and anxious about being guilty, and angry that you cannot simply relax like a normal person. So the original problem is no longer the problem. Now the problem is what your reaction seems to say about you. That evening, Mara Ellis had 2 chairs waiting for her. One was in the front row of an elementary school auditorium. The other was beneath the fluorescent lights of Brightcart's 23rd floor conference room. She had promised her daughter she would sit in the first. At 6:17 p.m., she was still sitting in the second. And before the night was over, Mara would discover that the things demanding the most attention are rarely the things that deserve it. Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Wise Mind Stories. In this episode, you'll learn why trying to feel okay about everything can make you feel worse, what not giving a f times CK actually means, and how to choose what deserves your limited attention before something important pays the price. At 5:41 that afternoon, Brightcart's holiday campaign was finished. The client had approved it. The media plan was locked. Mara's team had spent 11 weeks building it, surviving 17 revisions, 2 legal reviews, 1 broken motion graphics render, and a Tuesday when the office coffee machine flooded the kitchen. At 5:43, Helen Ward, Brightcart's chief brand officer, wrote in the team channel, "Strong work, go home." Mara read the message twice. Then a notification appeared beneath it. Julian Cross had left 1 comment in the launch document. Not sure the final headline fully solves the trust issue. That was all. Not a rejection, not a request, not even a recommendation. But Mara felt the sentence enter her body like a splinter. She zoomed in on the headline. She opened the consumer research. She reread Julian's comment. The campaign had been approved, yet her brain began preparing for a trial no one had scheduled. Maybe Julian was questioning her judgment. Maybe Helen would see the comment and reconsider the entire campaign. Maybe the launch would underperform, and everyone would remember that Julian had warned them. Mara typed a reply, deleted it, typed another, and deleted that too. At 5:52, Ben called. "You leaving?" Mara looked at the small paper star taped to her laptop. Lucy had drawn it in purple marker that morning. Underneath, in the uncertain handwriting of an 8-year-old, she had written, "Front row. I'll look for you." 5 minutes, Mara said. "The recital starts at 6:30. "I know, Mara." I said I know. There was a pause. Ben had learned that when Mara used that tone, she was not protecting a deadline. She was protecting herself from the possibility that someone, somewhere, might think she had missed something. "Okay," he said. "We saved your seat." The call ended. Mara told herself she was doing this for her family. Responsible people did not leave loose ends. Successful people anticipated criticism. Good leaders cared. So Mara cared harder. She asked a designer to reopen the file. She requested 3 headline options. She rebuilt a slide that had already been approved. At 6:09, Julian walked past the glass wall and stopped. "You're still here?" Mara looked up. "I'm resolving your concern." He frowned. "My concern?" "The trust issue." "Oh." He stepped into the room. "That was a note for the post-launch review. I liked the headline." Mara stared at him. The emergency vanished, but the embarrassment remained. And because embarrassment was uncomfortable, Mara's mind created a new emergency. She should have known what he meant. She had overreacted. She was going to be late. What kind of mother loses track of time over a comment? The criticism ended. The self-criticism began. Mark Manson gives this pattern a deliberately dramatic name: the feedback loop from hell. You feel anxious. Then you become anxious about being anxious. You feel insecure. Then you judge yourself for being insecure. You are angry. Then you become ashamed that anger has so much control over you. The first emotion is ordinary information. The second layer turns it into an identity crisis. This is why forced positivity often backfires. If you believe you must feel confident all the time, every moment of doubt becomes evidence that something is wrong with you. If you believe a good life should feel good all the time, normal pain begins to feel like personal failure. Mara was no longer responding to Julian's comment. She was responding to the fact that she had responded. The loop had closed. At 6:18, she shut her laptop and ran. The elevator stopped on 14, then 9, then 3. Outside, rain polished the sidewalks black. Her rideshare app estimated 21 minutes. The recital had already started. Mara called Ben. No answer. She sent a message. Tell her I'm coming. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, then returned. Finally, Ben sent a video. Lucy stood on a low wooden riser in a silver paper crown. 40 children were singing beneath a cardboard moon. The camera shook slightly as Ben zoomed in. Lucy sang the first line while looking at the conductor, then her eyes moved toward the audience. She searched the front row. For 1 second, her mouth kept forming the words, but her face changed. The smile stayed. The hope left. Mara watched the moment in the back seat of a car that was not moving. Her chair was visible beside Ben, empty. This is the part people often misunderstand about the title of Manson's book. Not giving a F times CK does not mean becoming indifferent. Indifference says nothing matters. The subtle art says some things matter so much that other things must be allowed not to matter. That difference changes everything. The person who cares about nothing is not free. They are detached. The person who cares about everything is not compassionate. They are controlled. Freedom requires selection. If everything can command your attention, nothing has earned your devotion. Manson explains that we are always giving a F times CK about something, whether we admit it or not. Even the person performing indifference may care deeply about appearing unaffected. The question is never whether you will care. The question is what gets to spend you. Mara believed she cared about excellence, but the Bright Card campaign was already excellent. What she cared about in that conference room was protection from judgment. She did not miss the recital because work mattered more than Lucy. She missed it because, in that moment, avoiding one colleague's possible disapproval felt more urgent than keeping one daughter's trust. That was the reversal. Mara had believed work stole her time. The truth was more uncomfortable. She had handed her time to fear and called it responsibility. The car reached the school at 6:46. Parents were already spilling through the doors, folding programs into coat pockets, carrying sleepy children and foil-wrapped flowers. Mara pushed through the crowd. She found Ben near the gymnasium wall. Lucy stood beside him, holding a paper cup of punch and staring at the floor. Mara knelt. I'm so sorry. Lucy nodded. The video was beautiful. You were beautiful. Did you see the moon song? Dad sent it. Lucy looked up. But did you see it? Children can expose an adult's evasions with terrifying precision. Mara could say she had watched the pixels. She could not say she had been there. No, she said. I didn't. Lucy took Ben's hand. It's okay. It was not okay. And that mattered too. Acceptance is not pretending damage did not happen. It is refusing to add a second fiction to the first pain. The feedback loop from hell would have encouraged Mara to spend the ride home calling herself a terrible mother. That might sound like accountability, but self-hatred can be another form of avoidance. It keeps attention on how awful you feel, instead of what the person you hurt now needs. Mara did not need to prove she was bad. She needed to become more trustworthy. Guilt becomes useful only when it stops being a mirror and becomes a door. At home, Lucy went upstairs without asking Mara to read with her. Ben remained in the kitchen, rinsing 3 cups that were already clean. "You want me to tell you it's fine?" he asked. "No." "Good." Because she kept looking at that chair. Mara sat at the table. It was one comment. Ben turned off the water. "No," he said. It was one choice. The sentence hurt because it removed the comforting villain. Brightcart had not ordered her to stay. Helen had told her to go home. Julian had not demanded a revision. There had been no crisis except the one Mara created to avoid feeling uncertain. Manson begins his book with Charles Bukowski, a writer whose grave carries the words, "Don't try." Those words are easy to misread as laziness. Bukowski wrote for years, endured rejection, and kept going. The point was not to avoid effort. It was to stop manufacturing a polished identity and then exhausting yourself trying to defend it. This connects to what philosopher Alan Watts called the backwards law. The more desperately we pursue a positive experience, the more the pursuit reminds us that we do not have it. Chase confidence hard enough, and every doubt becomes proof of inadequacy. Chase approval hard enough, and every neutral comment sounds like rejection. Chase happiness hard enough, and every difficult day becomes evidence that life is going wrong. Acceptance reverses the movement. Not because pain magically disappears. Because pain no longer has to prove anything about you. You can be anxious without becoming an anxious person. You can be criticized without conducting a referendum on your worth. You can fail someone without converting the failure into a permanent identity. A feeling is an experience. It becomes a prison when you turn it into a verdict. The next morning, Mara found the purple paper star under her laptop. "Front row, I'll look for you." Her father called while she was holding it. Tom Ellis had called twice the week before. Mara had returned both calls with texts, "Big launch. This weekend?" "This time," she answered. "Hey, kiddo," he said. His voice sounded thinner than usual. "Bad time?" Mara looked at the unread messages waiting on her screen. There were 12. For once, she let them wait. "No," she said. "Tell me." Tom hesitated. "Doctor found something on the scan. Probably nothing. But I have another appointment Thursday." Mara closed the laptop. The room became very quiet. Choosing what matters does not guarantee comfort. Often, it does the opposite. The meaningless things are attractive because they offer problems we can pretend to control. The perfect reply, the polished image, the stranger's opinion, the tiny mistake we can replay until it feels important. The meaningful things are dangerous. Children can be disappointed. Parents can get sick. Love can be lost. To care deliberately is to accept the pain attached to what you love, and that is why selective caring is not apathy. It is courage. Sarah closing. The answer to today's question is not that you should care less about life. You should care with greater precision. You have a limited amount of time, attention, and emotional energy. Every trivial concern that receives them is spending something you cannot recover. So here is one simple experiment for today. Use the 2 chairs test. When 2 things compete for your attention, picture a chair waiting for you in each place. Name the real cost of sitting in one and leaving the other empty. Then ask, which regret am I willing to carry? Do not ask which choice removes discomfort. Meaningful choices often hurt. Ask which discomfort belongs to the life you want. If this story helped you recognize where your attention has been going, subscribe to Wise Mind Stories. Because Mara has stopped treating every problem as equally important, but her father's call leaves her with a harder truth. Even when you choose what matters, pain does not disappear. So if suffering is unavoidable, which problems are actually worth having? Wise Mind Stories quotable lines. If everything can command your attention, nothing has earned your devotion. She handed her time to fear and called it responsibility. Guilt becomes useful only when it stops being a mirror and becomes a door. A feeling becomes a prison when you turn it into a verdict. Next episode, teaser. Mara finally answers the call she has been postponing, expecting one more small obligation. Instead, her father gives her news that cannot be solved with a better headline, a faster reply, or a perfect plan. She has learned that not every problem deserves her attention. Now she must learn why the problems that do deserve it will never stop hurting.